Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AmericanScouser podcast. It is a Monday night. We are back in action as the complete trio over here. I am your host, as always, Timothy, here in Chicago. Beautiful day out there, like beautiful, after ridiculous amounts of rain. So that is my weather update over here. A lot more to update to, but we'll first. Something broke in the background. Did the pot fall off the?
What's going on?
Go check the spaghetti holes back there, Bickler.
Just shaking the couch cushions and see what coins come out. Apparently,
I mean, I'm not sure what we just brought down. Whether that was like half of the table or
whatever was left of my sanity is now gone.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I don't know what happened there, but how was the weather over there? Obviously, there's a lot of coins to go around. Sounds like, but how was
great?
The weather?
You know, I was telling you guys, the kids were excited this morning to go to school and burn their retinas out. They were talking about how they're going to look directly at this thing. School outsmarted them, gave them a half day, and kicked them out before they got a chance to do that on their watch. So yeah, it's been good. I didn't see any of this. Whatever happened today weather-wise, because I was busy doing things like work. But apparently it was outstanding. Good to know we're all still standing. No apocalypse happened. Jesus didn't come back. The stock market didn't crash. We're all here.
Yeah, I mean, some of us were busy adulting, if you will, I guess. But as we gather around over here, and we are a bunch of people on Instagram Live as well, should be quite an exciting evening. There's a lot to talk about. But Gally, how was your day, weather, and eclipse?
Well, let me tell you, the weather is just gorgeous. If I didn't have to deal with a bunch of grown-ass people wearing like 7 layers of plastic that they paid too much money for on their face. I actually saw a lady putting like a condom sleeve on her phone because she was sold that if she took pictures of the eclipse on her iPhone, it would ruin the camera if she didn't put this lens on it. This is how stupid people are, okay?
That's not what we mean when we say wear a condom for protection, but okay.
There is a sucker born every single second. But I'm with Bickler. I was happy to know that satellites didn't fall out of the sky, and even though there was an actual earthquake that moved the freaking ground and the buildings that I was in on Friday here in New England, which was kind of weird. Like, we're not supposed to have earthquakes. And then 3 days later, an eclipse is coming, and people want me to think it's just normal. No, I don't buy this shit. I'm just kidding. Take my tinfoil hat off. I really don't care. But honestly, if I ever, or you ever hear about me traveling to the northern parts of some bumpkin ass state, like all the way up to Burlington, Vermont, and I'm not just going to have like an outstanding bender or a great meal at Hen of the Wood, or like going up to like Rochester to visit my in-laws or something. I know people who are actually going to these areas and paying hundreds and thousands of dollars to stay in hotels for one night that normally were like $100 a night.
Closer to the sun or something? I'm confused. Like, what is the advantage? Just better vision?
There was a direct path for this where you would see it like more perfectly. It was right at the American-Canadian border. It was our gift to the Canadians.
That's nice. It's always good to give back, I guess. But no, I don't know. I kind of assumed, I think when right around lunchtime, Angel said, hey, when is this supposed to be? And I know, we said, we were talking about it this morning with Matush. He told us exactly what it's going to be in Chicago. And so I'm like, okay. And it's supposed to get really dark. If anything, I was more worried about Leo and Stitch over here kind of like freaking out because they say dogs kind of freak out, becoming dark middle of the night and stuff. They're already pissed off from this weekend that we didn't score enough goals. So I didn't want them getting even more upset with that thing. And I'm working. And I figured the room would suddenly get dark or something like that, and freaking nothing happens. The girls saw it, like Jasmine with the kids, and then like Layla, the kids that she teaches at the school, and then Layla was in the city and saw it and stuff like that. But yep, nothing. So I'm gonna have to wait apparently another 20 years now to be able to see that. We should do like an AmericanScouser outing, maybe do the podcast as we were looking at the sun or something. Some special occasion.
The odds of all three of us still being here to do that podcast in 20 years, I hope are good. But the fact that we all still talk to each other in 20 years, probably not.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make it, guys. I'm sorry. So yeah, 20 years is not happening. Sorry. I've been telling Angie, even made it to 50. That's a blessing. So 20 is not happy. Material says we weren't in totality. It just should get darker, shouldn't it? Not to mention, Material lives a couple of hours away. God knows what happens over there compared to over here. But one thing that has not changed with all these fiascos is trivia is still here and alive. And it will be here 20 years from now as well. That is my guarantee. I won't be here. Somebody else will be asking the questions. But are we ready for this? Atalanta, Liverpool is this week. So I was looking at it, trying to come up with some freaking trivia question. We've only played them once, actually, and that was in 2020 when we played them. But I felt when I was looking at that, this is an interesting exercise by itself. So we won 5-0 over there, and then we lost 2-0 at home because that was kind of like a whatever thing after the 5-0. Gali, let's start with you. Do you remember who scored the goals in that game against Atalanta? November 3rd, 2020. And then we'll do like an interesting exercise afterwards.
There were I do
5 goals.
Yeah, but I feel like there was
I can guess like
2020. I'm gonna say it was Mo, Mane, and your buddy Ox.
Ooh, that would have been a good one. But is it, Bickler? Is Ox in there? Is Mane in there? Is Mo in there? Who's in there? 5 goals.
I hate these, dude.
I haven't seen a
Mane and Mo are your obvious. Like those are your good shouts. For goals, let's see who else. I will give. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Let's go. Did Bobby get one?
Negative. People are throwing the answer at you here. Jota hat trick. And 1 from Sadio, 1 from Mane for that 5-0. And actually, it looks like afterwards, like Bobby and Keita, and like we kind of like rotated and stuff like that. It was that kind of game. But here's the interesting part. So let's go through this. I thought this was kind of like a interesting exercise over here. Lineup. Who do you guys think was in that starting 11 going against Atalanta that day? Let's start with goal. That one is easy. Who's in goal, Gally?
Allison.
Yes. Right back, left back. Bickler.
Trent Robbo.
Yes. Going easy so far. Here comes tricky. Center backs, Gally. Sorry, you got the short end of the stick over here.
Was that the year of the injuries?
Is it?
Is that like is this literally like one of our like Fabinho and Henderson?
No, Henderson is in there, but it looks like he's in midfield.
Blah, blah, blah. Was it Gomez in 2020?
Gomez is one of them. Bickler, throw the other one. This is the tricky one. I would have never guessed this, I'll be honest. I mean, now you might be able to guess it because I kind of threw it out there, but.
Was it your good buddy, Kabak? Was he on the side?
Yeah, it's a small country. We all know each other. Nope, it wasn't. It wasn't Kabak, not Kabak.
Are the people in the our guests that are asking? Is it Reese Williams?
Yes, that is correct. It was Reese Williams. I would have never guessed that. I would have, if anything, as an obnoxious guess, I would have probably said Phillips, but not that. And the rest of it was Henderson, Jones, Genie in midfield, Jota, Mane, and Mo up top. And 5-0, those were the days when we were scoring goals in bunches, apparently. Well, honestly, that game. And then the second game, it looks like we rotated, and it was 2-0 loss at home. Yeah, so I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting that Reese. I do not remember this. Obviously, it is through that injury era, I assume, because even with rotation, I don't know how much rotation we had to do to get Reese Williams starting against Atalanta away. It is in November, so I don't know if it says if it was.
That would have been after the Van Dijk injury because he gets injured before the international break against Everton, October.
Yeah, it's like a Champions League game too. So I think it's in the group stages, I assume. But yeah, it's like I say, the second leg is a 2-0 loss at home. So we're gonna talk about the game, obviously. A lot to get to there. I'm sure a lot to talk about there. But before we move on, do not forget if you're on Instagram, if you're not following us on Instagram, this is a good reason to do so. And along with Liverpool goals, we're in a giveaway right now with signed McAllister jersey. Doesn't get any freaking better than that. So head on over there. The link in terms of like instructions and where to go and everything is on our Instagram account as well. So that runs. The winner is going to be announced on the 14th. So do it fast before it goes away. Okay. Let's get to the weekend. Obviously, a lot to talk to. And over the last, Michael says, can we talk about something else? Yes, actually, you know what? Let's start with this. Because now that I kind of tried to hide away, I used the post-match. Gally, you were on there with the post-match as well. Kind of use that as the therapy and then try to move on with the rest of the day. Actually, I went into the Fenerbahce drama and stuff like that, so I kind of got distracted and I didn't look until in the evening. I saw some social media and stuff like that. So Bigler, the social media, as always, is full of people jumping off the bridge and like just over the top slating of players with a bunch of other fans, what I like to call fansplaining the other ones and explaining the definition of what YNWA stands for and all that kind of stuff. Even though when you click on their names and see their past posts, they were just as brutal on other players, but today they went the high road. How much of an extreme reaction are you seeing? Are you at that extreme level? Where are you at?
I spent some time online before, like right after the game, but I haven't spent a whole lot on there just because, I mean, we all know that this is the worst part of this gig, right? We have to like talk about this. We have to like listen to the ridiculousness online. I don't know, man. I have a real hard time with the fact that like as Liverpool supporters, we talk about how we're the best, smartest, most engaged fans in the entire world of football. And then we do shit like send Kwanzaa death threats, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like our supporters are just like any other supporters. And when there's a small faction of us that are complete morons that have no grasp of reality, right? And like, I just think that's the thing that I have a hard time with, like we miss 90 shots over 3 matches versus United, right? And that's how many goals we scored. And then we're going to put it on some teenage kid, right? Like that. It's just so ridiculous to me. So I have a really hard time when this happens, we have to deal with this kind of thing. It was a rough game. It was tough to take. We struggle against counterattacking sides. We let them do their thing. We were wasteful in front of goal. They caught us out on a mistake that flipped the momentum of the game. And then they turned around. Manu hits like just an absolute worldie out of nothing. And then we're down 2-1, right? So credit the guys for coming back, getting in the box, getting the penalty, drawing a leveler. But it's tough. It's tough to swallow in a title race, losing to or tying and dropping points versus United, let alone a shit United team, right? Like that's the really tough part about this. But at the end of the day, like we just didn't have enough. We weren't clinical enough. I thought at times in the game we looked disinterested about going after the second. And that's just how she shakes out sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I know like there was a post from like Kelsey on Instagram actually telling us maybe we should post something positive, and we're on it right now about Kwanzaa because there's some like ridiculous overreaction. And yeah, he's a kid. And really, if you watch the game and you put the point loss on Kwanzaa at the end, I mean, yeah, when it happened, I was upset too. And, like, what the hell? But then, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to put that game. And I do not agree with this. Nick says it's because Liverpool have become a tourist club. I'll tell you this. Most of the ones that I see, and maybe it's like, I mean, like, I was talking about this morning, like half my Facebook friends are Liverpool. The other half are probably like, school contacts in high school, college and stuff like that. And a lot of those guys are actually, like Scousers back in Liverpool and like lifelong fans and stuff like that. And it's odd, Gally. I just feel like it's a percentage across the board. It doesn't matter where you're from. There are people who are just freaking just gonna be over the top reaction to everything. And I don't know, because I was actually asking Matush, I'll ask you, is that because maybe they hear about it a lot more when you're back there, whereas we're just gonna hear about some fans online, but we're more like a community over here, as opposed to if you're back there, you're probably like people are just freaking like texting you and talking shit and stuff like that.
I don't know if it matters where you are. I just think people suck. Like, I think what it comes down to is it's so easy. It's so easy to be an awful human being behind an anonymous emoji and a username and a handle. I think you can say things online that you wouldn't say to someone, even if you were on the phone with them and in a phone call, or you saw them on a playground. Like, there's no way these people would act. But I think that's every team, and that's every supporter group. So like Paul mentioned earlier, we all like to call each other the smartest fans in the world, most knowledgeable. Listen, we're passionate. That doesn't mean other supporters don't believe they're just as passionate, and they supposedly love their club. I just think at times we balance being critical and being downright nasty. And I think when people went at Lovren in the past, when people go at Kwanzaa now, when people have gone and dug in at our players for things, as soon as it turns personal and it goes away from like the sport and the fact that this is their profession and we get to have an opinion, it just ends. And I think that's what happened here. It's just not worth. I don't think it's worth giving too much airtime to these idiots, to be honest, because I think the good supporters out there rally around and try to denounce it when they see it. The problem is that kid still got to read it, and he's a teenager, and he shouldn't have to. I just hope there's I know there's really good people around him that will make sure that he understands how important it is to block that shit out.
Michael Martin says, I'm pretty smart for what it's worth. I consider myself above average. So there you go. We got 2 at least, and we can just keep adding the tally as we go. I think it's just a percentage. I mean, Sparky says we have some idiots as fans. I think every group has a certain percentage, and obviously as the numbers go up, that goes up. I think overall percentage is the same. But yeah, I agree with sometimes people say, oh, our fans would never do that when something like this happens. Well, there you go. Our fans do it as well. Everybody's fans do it. And I honestly, and like I say, I just don't want anybody saying like, sadly it is, like Nick says, it is full of it. Like people get it all the time. But in some ways, and I know what you mean, Gally, like you don't want to give these people the time of day, but at the same time, you almost like, I feel like it should be addressed and these people should be semi-shamed. Would they be? Probably not, but still it should be something that, got to kind of like take a stance to, so that they fuck off.
I'm all for calling out the idiots who you catch on TV that are, chanting these terrible tragedy chants at stadiums. I'm all for getting face grabs and calling out people by name when we know who they are, right? And I love that shit. Like, I'm like a Twitter investigator. If I'm sitting on Twitter and someone tells me, I can click in and I can figure out who this asshole is, and it tells me all the things they did in the last 3 months, like, I think that's the greatest thing in the world when people get outed for being absolute trolls. Because if you're going to be that person, then you have to live with that scarlet letter. You got to live with that mark. So I'm all for calling them out. I guess my thing is when we just talk about the hate on social media, I think it almost just sometimes reinforces more people to drop hate on social media because people are talking about it. And part of the reason they make these posts are so people will talk about it.
That's part of it, and I think it goes back to, like Dylan on Instagram says, hard to shame someone who hides behind the fake profile, and that's why I think you see a lot more of it, like in Instagram and stuff like that, because you can have, just a name and just throw it out there and say stuff, kind of like what you're saying, that you would never say to somebody's face, leave alone, like you said, like on the phone or anything like that. It's a lot easier to hide behind. I mean, even Facebook and stuff like that now, when people have like just bogus profiles with that's not them. And how many times have I been told that's like the humor behind it and stuff like that? No, you just want to be able to say shit without being responsible for it. So sadly, we have to talk about the game. I hate to do it, but I'd rather talk about something else. But maybe we'll go back to the the sun, and 20 years from now we're getting another eclipse. We'll talk about that. But if you blame Kwanzaa, not the 4v2 and 5v3 counters that didn't get converted, that tells the depth of their footy knowledge. And I think that's the issue. And I honestly, Bickler, when I look at the game, it's really hard to pick specific moments or even specific misses. I felt like as a whole, very similar to the other games we played, and getting a lot of shots against United is nothing to be proud of, because Sheffield United got a lot of shots. This is a team that gives the most shots. It basically comes down to not being able to convert and put the game away. We did the same thing in the FA Cup, and the thought was we learned our lesson, but why do you think we're running into this issue where we just can't put it away?
I mean, it's kind of been an issue all year, right? I mean, I think we've had versions of this throughout the year. I think part of it is just a lot of like new pieces coming together and gelling, and I think a lot of it is just there is a real issue with like muscle fatigue here. And I know that we're coming off an international break, but I just think at some point, like some of the decision making isn't as crisp as it should be, and I think that also is fatigue. I just think, at some point, right, like you should be able to go in and get 2 goals and win a game with 2 goals, right? The problem, like to me, it's a combination of not finishing and then just having like serious lapses of like concentration defensively. And I think it's tough, man. Like you have that one mistake, it turns the game, and then you have another incredibly young, talented, midfielder at United who just turns and just strokes one in from like a ridiculous angle, right? So like, what do you do there? You could probably make the argument that could have been closed down better, but like at the same time, sometimes you just have to tip your hat and say that was an unbelievable play.
Yeah,
right?
It was
Just an unreal play. So I wish I had the answer. I think this is one of those perfect storms where you just didn't put goals away, and they caught lightning in a bottle, not once but twice, right? So it's tough. We look at this, right? And we knew that these 3 teams down the title race were going to drop points, right? We knew that. We were like, we don't think that any of these 3 teams are going to win out, right? And so let's hope that this is the blip where we drop points, and that we're going from here on, we can scrape these 3 wins together. If you look at this game, I think it's really, really difficult to pinpoint one thing. I think it's just a combination of poor finishing in like just getting caught out twice. I really do. And I think, I don't know, we talked about the lineup. Should Kwanzaa have started? Like I think there's 2 scenarios here. One is that Konate was going to start both of these games, that he was going to start both of these games, and he got hurt during the last game. We thought it was serious. He gets out of there. He's fine. He plays through it. I wonder if there was something they saw they didn't like, or something they thought that he needed from a recovery standpoint that took him out of this game, in which they planned to play him. And the other possibility, which I think is a real possibility, I think there is a real possibility that Klopp rates Kwanzaa higher than Konate right now. And I think that's kind of the thing that nobody really wants to discuss.
I don't know. Like, I mean, when we were in the pre-match, Gally, we kind of looked at that lineup and we said, yeah, we're worried about the right side of the defense, right? Like we didn't know, because I mean, I personally expected Gomez to start, but that was more judging by how the minutes were allocated midweek and stuff like that. But we were kind of like worried about what the right side of defense would be. But to be fair, after watching the game, I still find it hard to say, well, that was a mistake over there, because that game could have easily been 4-1, 5-1, 5-2, or something like that, and we would never question any of the lineup decisions. Just looking at the first half alone, you would say, oh, that's 3-0 at halftime, and we just like close out the game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we get the second goal at any point after Diaz's first, they quit. They would have just quit. They would have packed up shop. They would have been done. At 2-0, they would have been done. I genuinely believe that. Now, I can argue that Bradley wasn't that great in the first half. I thought Bradley was out of position multiple times in the first half. It's why Garnacho gets in early. He runs right past him twice. He's ahead of Mo at one point and turns the ball over. He picks up the just ridiculous yellow early, which goes to VAR. And the fact that you're a 19-year-old kid giving the VAR a chance to send you off at Man United, like, it's why you don't start that kid. I think I felt that Gomez should have started on the right-hand side. I would have felt better about Kwanzaa playing there. I'm not disagreeing with Paul. I think Kwanzaa's a really, really, really highly rated player. I don't think there's been anything I've seen this year that would make me think that he should be above Konate on any depth chart. And I know that Paul saying he thinks he thinks that Klopp is feeling that way at this point, and he very well may. That's a huge call, and it didn't work out. Because here's the thing. The mistake did happen, and there will be more mistakes, and it's okay that the mistake happened. But, like, Gerrard's slip happened, and he'd been around forever, and everyone was like, it just happens. These things happen to players. But when they happen to young kids who haven't had 20 starts in this type of an experience, I think it does make something. And I'm here with Nick here on this comment, and this is where I was going. Timuchin, you said you can't pin it down to one moment. I wouldn't pin it down to one moment. I think the whole problem with this side right now and why we have no idea where they'll finish in this title race is we don't have a fit and firing striker yet. We were going into a match at Old Trafford saying to ourselves, we are top of the league and all we have to do is win every match out and we win this league. And we can't rely on anyone to score a goal because honestly, the misses that Mo and Diaz had in the final 20 minutes of that match, one-on-one with a keeper from 6 yards out and not even hitting it on target. Soboslai's miss in the first half. I mean, and it's funny, right? In Discord, we get on Nunez because Onana makes a worldy save on a curler into the upper corner, and he's a bum, right? And then he misses one over the bar, and he's a bum. And we have Mo literally hadn't put a shot on target the entire match. You know, even Nunez in the second half with the weird cross and not cutting it back. They were so poor, so wasteful. I wish Mo's bad shots were the worst of his play, but he just meaningfully kept turning the ball over and just passing the ball to United defenders. Like it just felt like there was never a goal coming, to be honest. I never felt like we were getting a goal from running play.
Yeah, I know I know they have this like chemistry with like Nunez and stuff, but it just felt like he's forcing too much now, those balls ahead of Nunez. And obviously they were kind of expecting that. I mean, before the game started in the pre-match, my thought on having Kwanzaa start over Konate was, Kwanzaa is able to do those matchup-like runs. We knew United was going to sit back. Maybe that's why he's playing. More than likely, you're right, Bickler. It was more like an injury thing because we thought Konate was injured last game. Then he came back in. Maybe the knock was worse than they thought. And they want to play it safe, which I'm all for. You don't want to play him and then lose him for the rest of the season, especially right in this period over here. But, yeah, I mean, same with Bradley and stuff, too. But like I say, I just find it very difficult to kind of go back and say, that starting 11 was the problem because it was not. It was just the finishing that was the problem. So is it just form? Is it just lack of confidence? Because we were talking about you this morning, Victor. You're a striker. It's just a matter of sometimes everything you hit goes in. So you hit everything one time with that confidence. Sometimes when you haven't scored in a while, you almost want to make sure so you maybe take a touch that you should not.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, I think back to what Shelton was talking about, like where sometimes it seems like we're overthinking this when we're in possession. And I think when you're tired, you tend to look for that perfect pass, right? Like I think that's what you try to do. And I think sometimes, especially when you have a team that sits back into a bank of 2 blocks of 4, I think sometimes you need somebody to take somebody on, right? Which you need somebody to like straight up square somebody up and take them on one-on-one and pull that player out of position to make space for somebody else. And I think sometimes we hurt ourselves when we do this thing where we just pass it around the box and look for that pass because it allows the low block to just sit there and absorb it. And they don't really have to work. We're actually working harder than they are. And so I think collectively it's a few things. I don't know if it's necessarily like a collective form other than as a collective fatigue. But everybody's tired, right? Everybody's injured. And at some point you have to figure that out. And I think, I thought the unmitigated nerve of you to come up with a trivia question that had anything to do with Jota after we had to sit through this game where, Jota would have had 2 or 3 easy and put this thing to bed.
Yeah, I really believe that's what I'm sorry to mention that was where I was going with the striker not being there. Like, I feel like Jota is like, forget the baseball reference here, but the old joke was like, if you need a slump buster, like there would be like a young like guy in the clubhouse whose job was to like help do something funny and ridiculous to help like a major league hitter stop like a 20-game slump. I feel like Jota is this team's slump buster. Like if they're playing poorly, if they aren't scoring, Klopp can put him in a match where we're playing like trash and he gets a big goal. Or he can give him a start and he can go out there against Atalanta and get a first half hat trick and change everything. I don't think there is a question in my mind if he was fully fit and healthy, especially the way we're playing right now, Jota would have started this match at Old Trafford. And I genuinely think he would have won it for us, probably in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. You look at the form of the front three right now. Yeah, Jota would easily slot in any position you want because he would just go in. We are struggling throughout, and I know a lot of the hate went to Mo, and I don't know, is that because we're more used to the scoring coming from there, and they're like, yes, let's go? Or I know his play has been a lot more poor. I know, like Brian is saying, like, consistently looking for the pass and assist instead of taking on defenders. I mean, he does get crowded a lot more. I think he does take advantage of that by letting be the creator now. But you only have Diaz that does what you were talking about earlier, Bickler, in terms of going at somebody. Nunez does, but he just takes it to somewhere where it's not going to be effective. So I feel like it's a lot more easier to contain him because Nunez running at you towards the middle is a scary thought. Because you don't know where the heck he's going to go. He probably doesn't know where the heck he's going to go. But, like, Nunez running towards the corner is like, go ahead, man. Just do your thing. I'll just continue over here. I feel like Diaz is the only player that is actually challenging defenders in terms of, like, going at them towards the box.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I do think Mo can take people on. It's got to be in transition. He's not somebody that typically does that. When we got those, I think, for me, I think Mo's like the knock on Mo on last game was completely warranted. I mean, considering the sheer volume of misses and missed passes and missed hits and I felt like he killed a lot of things in transition. I don't know what the deal is other than when's Ramadan over tomorrow? Can he eat? Can we get this dude eating? I think,
that has to be a factor.
I mean?
I don't care what people say. That has to be a factor.
So I mean, I don't know what it is. If that I would love for that to be related. He gets a nice meal tomorrow. He's feeling great, and we get back to Mo. But I do think it was fair. I mean, I thought Nunez was consistently our most dangerous player. And, I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. And people are going to talk about all his misses. I thought he was arguably our most dangerous player yesterday. On the weekend. So I don't get the slate for Darwin on that performance. I thought the stick that Mo got was probably well-deserved considering what he's on from a wage standpoint. And, I know that we shouldn't adjust our expectations on what he's paid, but that's what happens. Right. And if you make $500,000 a week, we expect you to step up and put goals on in big games in a title race.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say to the Mo point, I think to the Darwin Diaz Mo, when it works, I think Michael Martin just put the Diaz Nunez Salah is the love-hate front line. When it works, right, it is fire. And it is chaos and it's speed and it goes every which way. When it doesn't work, honestly, I feel like it subjects Mo to looking really isolated out on the right and doing very little for anyone else. And for me, and I'm going to come across as the ass and I'm going to come across the bad guy. For me, what these last couple months and coming back from the injury is it does look to me like we've seen a little different Mo. It's a different type of Mo. He looks for a different type of goal. He looks for a different type of play. He's not trying to take a player on like he used to. He's not trying to do the little tricks inside the box. He doesn't have the same level of magic. I still think he has goals in his boots. But I think we're starting to see age catch up with a 32-year-old who used to play with all pace and power. And his left foot was such magic. And I don't think he has it anymore. When was the last time you actually saw him curl a ball and put it actually on frame When was the last time he took a defender in on his left foot and put a ball in that a keeper actually had to save? He scores really great team goals where he's a wonderful finisher. There is zero chance, I said this before, and I've said it all year long, there is zero chance that Michael Edwards gives this man another contract, which means he gets sold at the end of the season. And I think it's starting to be in his mind that this is coming too. And I think there is a little bit of, it almost looks like it's weighing on him because he looks like he's wearing the weight of this jersey on his shoulders. And I think he wants to leave a legend. He wants to win some more silverware before he goes. But there's no way they're giving him another contract, and there's no way this guy is playing happily here as a dead man standing with 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I understand his criticism, and like Bickler says, whether he likes it or not, obviously the money part of it is going to be part of the deal, and it's going to come into the equation, whether it has anything to do with it or not. It is going to come into the equation when you're getting paid as like three guys, same as three guys or whatever. But I don't know, like maybe I feel like certain players we don't give as much benefit of that, and that's because of the money. I mean, maybe he's not fully fit yet, and I think fasting is like a huge part of it. I know players deny it and stuff like that, but I mean, you freaking play on an empty stomach. Forget the stomach. Dehydration, I think, is like the biggest thing of not having drunk anything all day. And you can't tell me that doesn't affect your play, or, you know, they talk about like what they have for breakfast affecting their play. So not having breakfast, lunch, or anything.
Did they not have any players on their side that were fasting yesterday?
Oh, I have no idea.
But my
okay, here's the thing though. You can't. I mean, that's
maybe Amrabat, but you can't tell.
Like, did United play great yesterday? So that doesn't.
No. But this is everywhere in world football. Everyone who has a player who is going.
Well, we're talking about Mo specifically. I mean, we're talking about Mo, and if we're going to criticize his play over the last month, and that's before that he was injured, so he is coming back from injury. I'm just saying, I almost feel like people are pulling the plug on this way too fast, way too quickly from a player who
I'll ask you a question.
Injury in Ramadan.
Do you believe Michael Edwards, with the history you have?
That's not the discussion, though. I mean, we're not talking about that. I'm not talking about next season. I'm not talking about what Michael Edwards is going to do. I'm talking about evaluating Mo's form right now. Are we jumping the gun and not kind of like considering all these other factors?
I think that I think he has fasted during this month every single year of his entire career. I don't remember anyone making any excuses 2 years ago when he was banging goals. Or 3 years ago.
He's done it every with him in Ramadan before. Because I mean, it's basically, I mean, obviously it's a excuse, if you want to call it an excuse, in the pocket, right? You know, whenever, if he scored it, he was like, oh, he was fasting and he still scored. If he doesn't score it, oh, maybe it was because it was fasting. I understand that part of it. I mean, the Edwards thing, I don't think Edwards is looking at the United games finishing to make that decision. Oh. That decision is probably already made in his head.
I was talking about the body of work over the entire season that has seen him score less goals per minutes played, non from the penalty spot, than in any other year in like the last four. His numbers have dropped off.
But you're saying that you think in these last 10 games or whatever, if Mo scores 20 goals, does that change that equation? I don't think.
No, I don't. I think that he has shown that he has dropped off a level of his play where he's no longer as elite as he was. And I think Klopp's proven it with how many times he's taken him off. Klopp doesn't take him off 2 years ago, even if he's fasting in a 1-1 game at home against Sheffield United on the 70th minute. Klopp didn't
have options before. Like he would have to put Ox on right wing or something like that.
I just feel like it's I think it's a tough time for Mo right now, and I think that it is a time that we're seeing. This is what nobody likes. When a player starts to age out, it's always hard, and I think it's easy to come up with a reason that it's not. And I think we watch a player. I don't think he can't put that ball on goal from 6 yards because he was fasting. I also don't think he can never put that ball on goal from 6 yards again. I just think that what we've seen is there's been a drop-off in his play that maybe has happened over the last few years that I think we're starting to see crack through a little bit more this season, and it's more consistent. And he can no longer – I can't tell you the last time I remember Mo Salah having an absolute match-winning performance. And that is weird to me.
See, I don't think we were having this conversation. Am I remembering this wrong, Bickler? Like, we were not having more performance conversations 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Listen, don't pull me into this. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just saying, like, we're basically I think the decision on him, in my mind, I think they already know. Like, they already knew they're probably like is a plan already. I don't think his recent form over the last few months or his upcoming form in the next 2 months is going to change that. But I know 2 months ago, we were not really talking about Mo's form. If anything, the discussion was, I mean, otherwise we would not even have discussions at the time about giving him an extension. Whereas we were kind of like throwing it around. Do we do it? Do we not do it? Kind of a deal.
Yeah, I don't think it's been, I mean, I think his form has been not as good this year. I don't think it's been dramatically worse until post-injury, right? I think post-injury, he comes back. He doesn't light the world on fire. He starts off a little slow. He gets some goals. But now we've seen 2 or 3 matches in a row where, like, I think the thing that's really standing out to us is not only is he doesn't seem to have the impact that he has on the pitch, but the team looks better when he's off it, right?
Yeah,
I think that's the uncomfortable thing. That's the uncomfortable part.
He's not the needed man as much, maybe. I mean, not everything goes through him as much, maybe. Galley, I mean, like Nick says earlier in the season, he was the facilitator, right? I mean, he was creating so much, and we were like, he's scoring, he's creating for others and stuff like that. Whereas, and here's another thing, right? Like, if we're finishing, it looks like Mo had an assist. If nobody's freaking finishing, I guess then it doesn't matter anyway.
It's a good point.
Right? I mean, I think that can be said probably for all the 3 up there, but
I do, and it's not a slant on Mo. Like, I'm not even saying like I think Mo's done. I think Mo stinks. I want to sell Mo tomorrow. I don't. I think we need Mo to be the best player on the team. He hasn't been for a while, and I think when we look at these matches, you need your best player. You know, I think Michael Martin mentioned it. We need those moments of magic, right? Those moments of magic. We haven't had many of those in a while. It's been a lot of spot kicks. There's been, you know, I mean, let's be real. The Mo finish against Brighton, great goal. Brought to you by Alexis McAllister.
Yeah.
The Mo finish against, you know, like I'd argue right now, the player who's making everything go offensively is McAllister. He pulls the strings. You know, if you look at some of the big moments he creates, and, you know, I will say I think Nick is onto something because I do think this side has missed Trent and his passes being able to create in the final third. And I think when you have a player like Trent creating from deep, he unlocks things for those players to run onto, and he like breaks through the lines. And right now we don't have that coming from anywhere in our defense. It's either Robertson bombing down the wing, old school, traditional wide play, or it's McAllister creating from inside. And I still think, to Paul's point, you know, this team gets better when Harvey Elliott plays in the middle, it plays on the right. And who knows, the team might get really good when you move Szoboszlai forward and let him be offensive and play as a right-sided attacker. Yeah. Because to Paul's point, maybe the next time Mo comes off the pitch, we should slide Szoboszlai up and see what it looks like with Elliott behind him.
Yeah, because like, go ahead.
Everything good seems to happen when Elliott comes in the game is where I was going.
Yeah,
and yet
Gene
he can't get in.
We need some competition to Mo on Instagram, and I think that's part of like the ordeal, right? There has never been. I mean, we've been talking about this for a couple of seasons where we got a bunch of left-sided guys, but nobody to play on the right-hand side when Mo comes out and Elliott's. I mean, the alternatives have always been Ox, Elliott, and stuff like that, and nobody like really on the right wing.
It hasn't Harvey at this point almost played himself into a super sub role. Like when somebody was saying like last match, why didn't you start Elliott instead of Gravenberch? It's like, well, Gravenberch is coming off. You want him to get like as many minutes as you can. You want him to hit the ground running. And why would you mess with bringing Harvey on? That has been that, like, out of all the uncertainty of this season, the one thing that you can count on is bringing Harvey off the bench and him giving you something, like him providing some sort of spark.
Yeah, and I do agree with what like Nick is saying in terms of Trent. I think if Trent was there yesterday, there are a lot of like moments where like Gomez and Bradley had opportunities to put the pass, and it was a little bit too fast, a little bit behind and stuff like that. So he connects those passes, and probably I mean, I was saying this morning too, probably see some passes that we didn't even see on the pitch with his vision on top of that, apart from the ones that they could not connect. But yeah, I mean, really, we've been relying on McAllister to do the creating mostly. So it would be good to have Trent back in there. As long as we still involve both of them, I guess that's my biggest fear is because it is a gamble when it comes to defense and midfield. You were about to say something, Gally. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is actually, I got to raise my hand though, like as someone who has been a firm member of the reinformed Curtis Jones fan club. That was not Curtis's greatest performance yesterday.
No.
He looked slow. He was off the ball. He lost it 2 or 3 times in tough spots. Paul's absolutely right. It is a worldie of a turn and goal by Manu. But Jones doesn't exactly cover himself in glory with closing him down there. And if he is a little bit better in that spot, I think he can close him down. Actually, if you rewatch it, you can see he could have closed him down more and probably done a lot more on that shot and given Kelleher a chance to not allow Manu to just basically wrap his foot into the perfect spot. And then he turns it over late when we look like we're going to counter. So that was a really, really bad look for Jones apologists like myself, who are always saying he should be playing. That being said, I don't think he's a dog shit talent. I still think all the things he did well. It just wasn't his best day. But I do think sometimes we talk about like, oh, it was a mistake here and a mistake there. Like there were lapses as well, like mentally again with this team, just kind of letting down. And I just question how much this whole season of Jurgen has just kind of weighed on them. And if they wouldn't be better right now of just waiting for the newspaper person to break this story instead of coming out with it when they did, because I feel like they came out with it as early as they could. And I almost felt like it made the story bigger that Klopp was leaving. And it just feels like it's like a tidal wave. And I think it is starting to like weigh on these guys, answering every week and thinking about it. And maybe the mentality monsters thing with this side, these guys are a little new. I don't know they were ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, that could be part of it. I mean, we didn't expect this team to be here when the season started in the first place,
100%.
right? So, I mean, there is that. So maybe in some ways they have overperformed, maybe because of that too. I know what you mean, though, because there are a lot of lapses. And I don't know, that's sometimes because this team needs to be challenged to be on their game. So we give a lead, we're like, here, have a goal. So we have to come back and work hard so we can focus or something. It just feels like when the game is coming too easy, they're almost like out of sync. And, Jones, I don't know. I was happy to see Jones coming in because obviously when he came in midweek, he was like, he made a huge impact and it was great. It was like, so good to have him back and stuff. And obviously he comes in afterwards and there is nothing. Nick says, can we pause to acknowledge how often Timuchin, the Polish prince, and now Gallier agreeing with me is unprecedented. I blame the eclipse. Weird things happen
Nick.
here. So I'm blaming
You got 20 years, brother. You got 20 years. You're good.
Mark your calendars,
coming.
So let's talk about this real quick. I know, I figured we'll talk a lot about the Thursday game and the rotation and stuff throughout the week as we go. But a lot of rumors coming in today. It's from some reliable sources. Obviously, nothing guaranteed. We've had this conversation a couple of weeks ago during the international break, and I kind of went out of my way not to ask you guys by name. And I try to ask you guys the characteristics you guys want in the new manager, kind of like build a manager kind of a deal in terms of like temperament, tactical, and all that kind of stuff. Having said that, Bickler, if it is Amorim, and by then I will learn how to say his name. I learned Szoboszlai. Once it's official, I will invest time to go to Google and find out like I did with Szoboszlai. But what do you think of it? Are you for it, against it? I'm
100% for it. I love it. I think it's a great hire. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think tactically he's just a super impressive manager. Ready for a 3-4-3, baby, right? No, I'm ready to see he's playing essentially 5 in the back, which changes into a 3-4-3 with a double pivot in front, which we've all been asking for. I think all the pieces are in play for it. I think it's going to be really, really interesting because I got to tell you, dude, this formation, you know what it suits? It suits a certain guy named Cody Gakpo big time because he likes to play with a striker who is good with his back to goal and is good in transition. I think I went down the rabbit hole today for like an hour where I was looking at a lot of sporting stuff and like their tactics. A lot of what they do really makes sense. They do a high press, very similar to Klopp's. Yep. They play with a fluid formation that changes. A lot of really interesting moving parts here. They have ball playing center halves, so it's very interesting. They've got a number of players that I know that this hire makes me sincerely believe that they'll actually get a center back this summer, which I'm pretty excited about since I've been asking for one for 2 or 3 years now. No, it doesn't mean Trent plays midfield. It means he'll be a wing back, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So he'll, So I guess technically both of best of both worlds, still a fullback, also a midfielder kind of. But I think what's interesting with this side with Amorim is that he attacks centrally and uses wing play to hold width as the shape as decoy. The attack doesn't come from the width, which is really interesting. So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things at play here. My fingers are crossed that we get him, mainly because I went Ignacio more than anything else in the world as a center half. But I think there's a lot of really good things here. I think he makes perfect sense, not only for like this team as to where it's at right now, but I also think he's a really good fit for the community at Liverpool.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I did not on Xavi Alonso, to be honest with you, but I did do it a lot on Amorim and watch a lot of videos and stuff like that. Some footage like analyzing like how Sporting plays and stuff like that. So if nothing else, I don't want that going to freaking waste now because I did spend a lot of time doing that on YouTube the other night. But Gally, do you think this was? I know all the fans said Alonso. I think we were talking about this amongst ourselves on Discord earlier today. Do you think this was kind of like the plan all along? And maybe Alonso knew he was not the number one choice, or do you think this was our number 2 choice?
I think that there was a plan all along to work out 4 to 5 names and whittle it down. I think when Edwards came in and decided to hire his guy, I think it quickly moved the needle towards Amorim being the number 1 case because they tried to hire him at Bournemouth before they got Areola right now, but they couldn't get him out of Sporting because Hughes wanted him there. So I genuinely think, no, please, no.
Just had to push it today.
I mean, there we go. I mean, you were looking for us.
There's no eclipse.
You wanted to go right over. It's like you wanted to go right back. Next thing you know, we're gonna have a 35. We're gonna have a 35 comment string between you and Bickler. But for good old time's sake. But no, I genuinely think that once the Edwards came in, they brought in his guy from Bournemouth. I think all the pieces fell into place that this was the perfect guy. And I think what's interesting is he was a 29-year-old player who retired and then started researching his badges, got into coaches, started coaching early. Like, this is another one of these, like, this is what they looked at when they fell in love with Nagelsmann when he was at Hoffenheim. They like innovative, young, energetic people. Why? Because they like young, innovative talents. And I genuinely believe this is us going back into developing young players, turning out young talent, rolling with young 20-year-olds and a few big-time players. I think we will see a change in the type of structured club that we've been. I know Nick doesn't want to hear that. I do think it's how we're going to go to attack things, and I think it's how we'll work. And I think Amorim's a really good hire. And I will say this, most of you know, I think I mentioned there's a huge Portuguese population here in Ludlow, in Fall River, Massachusetts, tons of Benfica fans, and they all are ecstatic that this dude is leaving the Portuguese Premier. Because honestly, that Sporting team shouldn't be beating that Porto or that Benfica team for league titles. And they are right now because he's that good of a manager. Like, I think we're getting a real class manager. Now the question is, does it work for him with the players we have?
I would think that would be some part of the conversation. So once it's official, I just kind of want to get your guys kind of like temperature on the whole ordeal. Once this becomes official, I'm sure we'll dissect it a lot more, and hopefully those videos we watch will not go to waste with Bickler over here. But Bickler, let's get to Thursday, Atalanta. Real quick, give me how much of a rotation you expect and a score prediction.
Oh God. Rotation wise, I think it's going to be pretty close to what we saw in the last match versus United. I'm trying to think who we could see come in here.
Do you expect like Gravenberch get another start? Do you expect Gakpo to get his starts?
I mean, I would love to see Gakpo get a start in the spot. It makes sense to me. Do I believe it'll happen? No, I don't. But I would love to see it. I kind of wonder. McAllister's logged a lot of minutes in, man. It's an important game, but there's got to be some sort of rotation in the mids. I'm guessing. I kind of feel like I don't know if McAllister is going to get the start, just because when I look at who's been rotated in and out, both Endo and Szoboszlai got rotated out. Jones is coming back. It might be a spot where you see Jones come in and get a start. I could see that here, even though he looked a little bit shaky. I could still see Gravenberch coming in here. I don't think Harvey's going to start because, I mean, that is just not something we do anymore. But yeah, I think I think it's going to be fairly. I think the back line is actually going to be the same. And then I would look to see some rotation in the mids. I'm just not exactly sure. Gravenberch or Jones would be my shout for starting in there.
Yeah, I would hope to get, let's say Mac a little bit. There's always the second leg of this. And if there's one game left really on the calendar, Gally, this is probably one where you can roll the dice a bit more than the other ones. But how much of a rotation and give? Oh, well, Bickler, you didn't give a score prediction, did you?
I'll do the 2 inches special. I'll go 3-1 here. It makes sense.
Welcome aboard. Gally, what do you have?
I'll say Endo starts in the center. Endo starts at the 6 and probably with maybe even Jones and Gravenberch alongside of them. I think both Szoboszlai and McAllister need a little bit of a rest. Up top, I'd love to see Mo get a rest, but I don't think it'll happen. We've talked about this all the time. It's a match at home. He'll probably start purely just to try to score goals. I do think Gakpo will start this match. I'm not 100% sure why. I think Gakpo starts, and then maybe it's Diaz on the left. Maybe it's Nunez on the left. Who knows? But I do think Gakpo gets a start here. He's got to rotate a little. I'll tell you this. There's one guarantee I will give you right now. Paul named every player on the side but this guy. Kostas Tsimikas will not start.
Really?
Like that is my guarantee.
You know what? Now I'm going to root for Paul.
Now you guarantee it. Go make a bet, people. He's not only starting, he's scoring man of the match.
Nick says Thiago, who only starts for Anand's FIFA team at this point, doesn't even start for most people's FIFA teams. So there's the only way you're going to see Thiago. That's not good news, but we'll get to it. Let's go one game at a time over here. What was the score prediction? I'm sorry, Gally.
I didn't give you one. I'm gonna go.
Come on, the water is great.
I'm gonna go 4-2.
4-2, huh? That's a crazy one. I'm going with a 2-0 on this one. Just because Bickler already grabbed my special with the 3-1. But I'm going with the 2-0, which is a good score to really take away for the second leg too. And I will love a game. I would prefer a 4-2 in the sense that away goals don't count anymore anyway. And I would like to have these guys get some goals in. So that's the preferable score to 2-0 probably. The more goals we get scoring, I think it will kind of get those. Nick is going with my special of 3-1 as well. Let's hope, like I say, goals would be good. Some confidence would be good. A win would be good as we head over to there. Brian Shelton is going with the 3-0. But we'll be back Wednesday morning is the next action over here with the morning coffee show. So grab a cup of Joe and join us then. We will not be agreeing with Nick because the eclipse will be over. So it'll be all kinds of fights we'll be picking up on air. Thanks to everybody. As always, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And do not forget the giveaway if you are not already done so. Head on to Instagram, follow us, click on the link, follow the other 2 accounts as well. So you can get entered to win the McAllister jersey. Thanks a lot, as always, everyone. Have an excellent week.